Welcome to Jackie's Craft Table. Hello everyone, I hope you're all having a fabulous day. I have another Arteza product that I'm going to review for you in this video. They sent me their set of 36 half-pan watercolors. It came with an aqua brush and it fits perfectly in this tin box of paints. It has a nice thin tip to it. I really enjoyed using that. I'm going to unwrap all of these half-pan paints. On each half-pan, it lists the name and number. And as I unwrap it, I like to snip this information off and just stick it on the bottom of my half-pan of paint. It does come with a chart that lists all of the colors, but just in case I mix them up, I'll always know what the color is. I use my scissors just to snip it open, and then I adhere it to the bottom of the paint, and then I just cut off the excess. It's really fun and easy to do. I'm not going to make you watch all of this, so I'll do this off camera. But the colors are so pretty and vibrant, even just in the pans. So here I am snipping off the side. Some came off easier than others. And then I can just pull it off, turn it over, and put the sticker on, and cut it down to size. And now for another fun part, I'm going to do some color swatching. The chart was printed out on a very thin piece of paper. I don't think it's watercolor paper, has a texture to it. But that's okay. I just want to get an idea of what each color looks like. So I do a thick coat of paint on the top of the square, and then I wipe off my brush and dilute the paint down a little bit so I can see what it looks like with more water. The squares on this chart are very small, but you can always make up your own chart on the watercolor paper of your choice. I'm going to speed this up now. You can see all of the beautiful colors that come in this set. I also really liked the tin that it came in. It has a lot of space where you could mix your colors or dilute your colors or do what you need to do with them. It also has lots of little dividers to keep your paint separated. I'm using a paper towel to clean off my brush in between the colors. I really love aqua brushes. You don't need open containers of water on your desk. You just need a paper towel or a cloth to clean off your brush with. For my card project, I am going to use a piece of their 100% cotton watercolor paper. It's nice and thick cottony paper, and I've really enjoyed working with it. I'll have the links below to all of these products as well as over on my blog. And as you can see, the colors are just beautiful. They don't play very well on the paper chart that they provided. But again, I don't think this is watercolor paper. Doesn't matter though, you just need an idea of the colors that you're going to be working with. And here they are. For my card project, I'm going to use a beautiful stamp set from Memory Box Ink. This was a Simon Says Stamp Memory Box Ink collaboration, and it's called Fresh Cut Bouquet. It's such a large but gorgeous stamp. It covers completely your A2 sized card, but I'm going to stamp the whole thing and paint all of it just for fun. And then I can cut it down to size later on. But I just had to paint this in with some watercolors on some beautiful watercolor paper. Because of the size of the stamp set, as well as the textured paper that I'm going to stamp it onto, I like to put it in my Misty stamp positioner. And I'm going to stamp it up with some VersaFine Onyx Black ink. This is a beautiful waterproof ink, so it won't bleed when I add water to my project. And as you can see, I have to stamp it up several times. I'm going to take my paper down to my work mat, and I'm just going to tape the edges. I'm not going to be using a lot of water on this, so I think it will be okay. I wasn't sure what colors I wanted to use on this, so I ended up using a lot of colors, but I'm going to color the largest blossom first with some purples. And I do use my color swatch sheet a lot for this. to see which colors will look good together. I'm using a light purple and a dark purple. I'm using the darkest color for my shadows, and then the lightest color toward the tips of my petals. I allow that to dry, and then I come back in later on with another layer. I used a tissue to dab away some of the color on the edges of the yellow flower, just to add some highlights. The paint was just getting too thick there. Now I'm returning to my purple flower to add a little more detail. And then I'm going to come in with some blue. I thought it just needed another color to really make it pop. I really love the blue added to this purple. It makes it look more like a delphinium. I don't know if you know what those are, but they're just a beautiful purpley blue flowers, one of my favorites. And then I'm coming in with some green to add to my yellow flower. Try adding tertiary colors to your work sometime. It really adds a richness to your painting. Tertiary colors are the colors that are next to each other in the rainbow, hence the yellow and green and my purple and blue. For my leaves, I'm using 3 different colors. I'm using 2 different greens and then a little bit of yellow just to make them pop. It also look really beautiful with some blue paint added to this, but I'm just using the yellow for this painting. I wanted to put down a pop of teal on these smaller flowers just to brighten it up. On most of these flowers, I'm coming in with another layer after it dries. So I was thinking about just using purple and yellow on this painting, but I really wanted to see what the red looked like. So I'm coming in with 2 colors of red for this flower. The flowers of this stamp set are just so beautifully drawn. There's so much you can do with this stamp set. I want to color it in with my colored pencils, and then it would look gorgeous if you were to stamp it out and heat emboss it with gold or silver or any color. So you'll probably see this stamp set appear again in another of my videos. I think the hardest part of this card project was actually cutting it down to A2 size. But I really do like how this card turned out because it completely covers the whole front of my A2 sized card. So I'm leaving in the entirety of my painting. I did, of course, speed it up for the sake of time, but I really enjoy seeing painting in fast motion because you can see the colors blending together and moving around. I think it's really fun to see. So I am going to add another color to this bouquet. I just couldn't help myself. I'm going to add an orange flower. I'll add my darkest shade first, and then I pull out the color to get a lighter shade of orange. And then for my last 2 colors, they are going to be purple and red. I'm painting the centers of all of my flowers with a yellow ochre and adding in little dabs of red, at least on this big purple flower. On the other flowers, I used just yellow ochre. Yellow ochre has to be one of my favorite colors. It just adds a warmth to your painting. Also, when I'm using my colored pencils, it seems like my yellow ochre pencil is always the shortest pencil in my box because I use it so much. So after I've painted in my bouquet, I'm going to put down a little bit of color around the flowers. It just looked too stark white. So I just keep adding layers to my painting, and that's one of the fun things about watercolors. You can keep building it up and adding to it, especially when you have a nice watercolor paper that takes a lot of water. There is a really beautiful color in this set called indigo. I watered down this pigment a lot, and it just created the softest bluish gray color, and I thought it was just perfect to put around these flowers. I dabbed a little paint at the bottom of my paper just to test it out to make sure I liked it, which I loved, so I start adding it around all my flowers and leaves. I'm not going for a really smooth blend here. I just want a little bit of color behind these flowers. I think I could have gone a little bit darker with this pigment, but that's okay. I like how it turned out anyway. After I'm done with my painting, I'm going to allow this to dry for a good hour. It probably doesn't take that long. but that's how long I let it sit on my desk. And I'm going to put this back into my MISTI. I want to crisp up my lines. Actually going to heat emboss over my lines. And you can use the same ink, the VersaFine Onyx Black ink, to do this because it is a pigment ink. I'm using some clear embossing powder. I'm treating it with an anti-static powder first. Helps control the static in my embossing powder. I could totally skip this step, but I like the look of the clear embossing powder over my flowers for this card. Just adds another level of cuteness to it because the lines are going to be shiny now. And you can see what a difference that makes, just adding the ink over it again. And this is where I pour over the clear embossing powder. And I can gently tap off the excess. I allowed my heat tool to heat up for a good minute. That way it's nice and hot and it will melt your embossing powder fast. Now I can melt the embossing powder and you can see how fast that goes. And I don't want to hold my heat tool to the paper for too long. This will just cause the embossing powder to really over melt and it could burn your paper. Now it's time to cut this panel down into an A2 sized card. I could have created a larger sized card with this, but I just prefer the A2 size for some reason. You guys ever be interested in seeing me do different shapes of cards or larger cards? Let me know in the comments below. So I used my faux stitched die to cut this out. And I'm gently peeling off the tape. I have to make up more of these cards. I just love how this turned out. I'm going to attach this panel to a red card base. I chose a red that kind of matched the red flowers in my piece. And that completely covers the front of that card base. I wanted to use the scraps of this paper too, so I'm going to cut that down and adhere that on the inside of my card. Just don't want to waste any scraps of this painting. I'm just using my dot liner to adhere that inside. My sentiment I also heat embossed with the VersaFine Onyx Black ink and some clear embossing powder. I fishtailed the end and put some foam tape behind it to just add a little dimension to this card. I also want to add a little bit of sparkle. When I create floral cards, I love adding these little water droplets to them. It just adds something really special to it, I think. I have 2 different sizes of that, and that completes my card. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I highly recommend these Arteza watercolors. The pigments are just gorgeous, and I had a lot of fun working with them. And their pricing is always really fabulous. Thanks for watching, my crafty friends. I wish you all a wonderful crafty day. Bye!